Hey everybody, welcome to Ice Cave Radio. I am your host, Doa, and with me is our other host, Charmer, of course. Who else would it be? Well, guess what? I'm going to Korea for like 3 weeks, so it might be another different person or two here because I don't know how much I'm going to be involved over the next 3 weeks. I probably shouldn't be, Charmer. Honestly, I should probably take a break. I should probably take a break and let the stellar group of StarCraft. See, this is why I need a break. Star Wars Unlimited people.
Oh, you flashed back like 10 years, my man.
I know, right? I'm gonna get that out of the way now, so I don't do it later. You know. But yeah, it's I need a break. I'm taking a vacation. I'm taking a holiday, a very long holiday. But I do mean to return, so don't worry about that. Unless you don't like me, then you just have to deal with it. It
will be you who's frozen in carbonite for once.
Yeah. Are you going to be able to do the Photoshop? Let's see your Photoshop skills.
I will be able to do a Photoshop.
Do it. I want to see your best effort at putting me in carbonite. We need to see this now.
No. Here's my litmus test.
Okay.
Is it better than anything I've seen from the Oval Office? And if I
we're both better than that, I hope.
If I can pass that, I think I'm okay.
Yeah, I don't think that's very difficult. Judging from what I've seen, I think it's that's like 6th grade, my first Photoshop level stuff. As a former graphic designer here and current YouTube thumbnail maker on the daily almost. Come on, you could do better. You could do better.
I would just like to say that I believe it's MS Paint.
Oh.
And whoever did it is like, graphic design is my passion.
I mean, I saw it. He had MS Paint on his knuckles, clear as day, man. Clear as day. It said MS Paint.
Yeah, it makes sense.
There's no dispute on that. Well, anyway, moving beyond the Senate, which brings us back around to Star Wars. I played Twin Suns yesterday at my local, which they've been doing Twin Suns nights off and on, but it just so happened that I just wasn't able to make one until now. And man, I was glad I did because I had so much fun. I played a Twin Suns deck I built a while ago and just hadn't gotten to play yet. I had to add 30 more cards to it because I built it before set 4 came out. And then I had to, update it to the 80 card version. But it was Yoda and Chancellor Palpatine. And man, that is just a great duo. I just put all the power cards in there. And then I just tried to not appear to be the biggest threat at the table. But I was, because you fix your draws every turn with Yoda, and then you just keep drawing cards with Palpatine, not to mention other card draw that you can just put in the deck. And so you always have a full hand. You always have something to do. There's always a way to like interact with the board. It was super, super fun. So I want to keep building that, but my next project is going to be Poldo. It's going to be a Poe and Holdo because I've got both the showcases. So I have to build that, So we're going to try resistant stuff, see how it goes. You've played a bit of Twin Suns, right?
Yeah, I really enjoy the format. Even here at home, even if it's like just 2 players, sometimes Stark and I like to break it out anyway.
Oh, yeah.
We played it at Gen Con last year. We did like a Twin Suns pod where my son famously I say through the game, but it came down to a point where myself or a stranger could win, but whoever Stark attacked would be solo on health, like the other person would win. And so he chose to friendly fire his dad and cost me the victory. But that's okay. Like that's a memory for him. So
top 10 anime betrayals right there.
Yeah, pretty much. And I was telling you before we started recording, so right now my go-to deck is Rey and Hera, because my theme was play as many out of aspect cards as I could. So I do Rey and Hera, but with a blue base, so I can do Vigilance and other double blue cards. And then I just run all the Spectre units, and I run Kylo as well. I want to build something with Nalase and clones potentially going forward. And then based on reveals for Legends of the Force, there's a leader that was revealed that I really want to build around. So when we get to that, I will make sure to call out how much fun I think that they could be in Twin Suns as well.
Oh, we've got a ton to talk about with Legends of the Force previews today. There were some really, really exciting things revealed. So we'll get to that in a moment. I wanted to mention too on the channel, we've got speaking of Poe, we've got an interview up there now with the only Poe player to reach day 2 of the Richmond Sector Qualifiers. So really, really good player. Had a really great chat with him about both the deck he ran there and then also the Data Vault list that he's experimenting with now. We've been kind of kicking that around in the Poe channel, which, by the way, if you're not in our Discord, go to icecaveradio.com. There's a Discord link there that will work forever. You can use it to join. Hang out. We talk about stuff all the time that's related to Star Wars Unlimited. It's really fun, so you should join us. And sign up for Conquer the Cave as well. You could play that too. Yeah, I decided to get that out there. But beyond that news, I mean, we had a Sector Qualifier. We had the regionals in Lille in Europe, which was won by a Sabine Data Vault, which I think got a lot of people thinking, hey, you know, can you be aggressive and run Data Vault? The answer is Sabine certainly can. I'm not so sure about a lot of other decks. I have tried Green Pilot Vader in Data Vault. I think it's possible, but I don't think it's necessary per se. It really works with Sabine because you always have a way to damage your opponent, even if you have 0 cards in hand. You know, that's why you can afford to have that bigger life pool and still play a consistent deck because there's a lot of cards that do about the same thing, right? So it works for Sabine. I'm not convinced it works for anyone else. Poe is okay, but I still think ECL is a little bit better. What are your thoughts on the recent results here? We saw that Sabine Data Vault.
I am. So here's my initial thought. I'm not surprised because if you expect to see a healthy number of Sabines, having the extra life total, I think, is actually a kind of a boon in the mirror. Mm-hmm. And I also traditionally I see most of the command-based Sabine decks have a little bit of a higher curve. So like when you and I used to heavily play the blonde Sabine with Cunning, I usually topped out my curve at around cost 5 or so. But with the green Sabine, because of ECL, we've very commonly seen, you know, Poes and Wreckers and all of those things anyway.
Right.
And yes, they are outstanding with Energy Conversion Lab. But if you are also just making the game go longer, they're just good mid-range cards as well. So going with something like Data Vault, it does not surprise me that it worked. I think that it's entirely viable, and I think that maybe other aggressive decks can't do it as well as Sabine because, as you were saying, she always has a source of damage. She's always going to deploy on 4. Both of those are very big, boons for her. But also, many times when I've built Sabine, I've had to cut like 10 or so cards anyway. And so just like running it all isn't necessarily the end of the world. You know what I mean? So I'm not surprised. I do think that we're going to see a lot more leaders that are either mid-range or even control focused start experimenting with Data Vault over Energy Conversion Lab.
It did make
you are somebody who is running like Kira, for example, or Iden, or any of those. I think Data Vault is like a slam dunk no-brainer. But even if you start looking at, you know, like you said, Poe, I think Poe's a little bit more difficult because you have to make sure you have a critical mass of your low end stuff and you want to be able to draw it so that you can have things to play pilots on. But if you're somebody who wants to experiment with the Green Han, for example, you're already running stuff like Ewing reinforcements where you can search anyway. So why not just run 10 more cards? You're going to likely see it anyway. Mm-hmm. I think we're going to see Data Vault pop up quite a bit more. I think the days of Energy Conversion Lab being the de facto green base are over.
I do want to go back to, which is good, by the way. I think that's something that's been a long time coming, and it is nice to have that flexibility. The more I think about it, the more I do actually want to go back and try Pilot Vader Data Vault again, because ECL isn't as vital for that list. And when you run Data Vault, one of the things you do is you also run 3 Timely Intervention too. So you're going to have that slightly more expensive ambush. It's going to be there. But Green Vader does tend to kind of, if it loses, it's because it probably needed like one more turn, you know? And so Data Vault gives you that one more turn, you know? So I might have to go back and revisit that now that I think about it. Any excuse to play double Green Vader again. That's my motto. But yeah, I think we're in a. I don't necessarily agree with people that say that we're in the Data Vault meta right now, that everyone's going to be running Data Vault. I think maybe for the next month people are going to be running Data Vault, but it's not gonna. I don't think it's gonna last forever. I don't think it's gonna be like the green base. I don't think we're gonna see all 30 health green bases vanish in favor of Data Vault. I think we're still gonna see a good mix of ECL, Data Vault, and then regular green bases. As things settle a little bit, right?
Yeah, for me, the math is just a little more complicated because before, the reason that I think the energy conversion lab always, traditionally won out over 90% of the times that you would want to consider the green 30 base is when you use your activation, are you netting like a 5-point swing, right? That was always my benchmark. To me, it's if I'm consistently using my energy conversion lab activation to either get rid of a unit that would have dealt me 5 damage, or maybe it's get rid of something that would have dealt 3, but I also am ambushing with like a restore 2 unit, whatever the case may be. My threshold was always 5. If I can pretty consistently get at least 5, then it's as good as the other base, but with upside. The problem is that Data Vault now pushes that math further out. And I do think that decks are going to evolve, and you will have decks that build specifically with ECL in mind, or as you said, right, with, if you run Data Vault, you're probably just running a bunch of timely interventions or whatever. Well, that's your adaptation for running with Data Vault in mind.
Yeah, for sure. You can also afford to run maybe a couple ambush cards you wouldn't run before, right? Because you're going to run those as removal essentially too. So there's a lot of things to think about. I really love the way that bases work in this game in general, because we're finally getting to the point where there are some real questions to be had about what base is the best with which leader. It was fairly obvious up to this point, and now I feel like there's a lot of arguments for a lot of different options, which is great. And I think that's very healthy for the game. But anyway, the competitive season is definitely heating up here as we get closer and closer to the Galactic Championships. I think we're seeing better and better players come out of the scene right now. I think just the fundamentals people have are getting really good and getting really impressive. And so I just can't wait for the Galactic Championships. I think it's going to be an awesome tournament. And we're going to have a lot of, I think we're going to have a lot of really great stories come out of it too. Yeah. I'm excited. Me too. All right. Well, we're also excited about Set 5 spoilers, so let's check that out. I didn't get around to a cave poll, so sorry. We'll do it next time, maybe. Well, actually, I won't be doing it. I'll be in Korea. But let's talk about Kanan Jarrus. I am like over the moon about this leader because it has creature synergy. Sure, it has Spectre stuff, whatever. But you can put some Spectres in there too. But I'm telling you right now, man. I mean, especially with another card we saw revealed this week, it is all about Kanan Jarrus creature synergy with green because of Malakilian. We'll talk about him in a moment. But let's talk about the card here. Action, pay 1, give a shield token to a creature or a Spectre unit. So, you and I were talking a little bit about this before the show started, and that's kind of one of the least conditional give a shield things in the game. And yeah, I know it's 2 very specific traits, but when you build your deck around that, to have a ton of that, then it becomes very, very easy to activate compared to like Lando or original Luke.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the leader that I was teasing when I said I want to build a new Twin Suns deck as well, because when you can combine Kanan with Hera, well, then suddenly you're going to absolutely have a ton of Spectre units, and then you can just run all the creature stuff on top of it.
Yeah.
And you'll be in a situation where Kanan can just start giving out shield tokens. But the reason that I'm so excited for this particular leader is that it is still conditional, but less conditional than the other leaders where you are applying shield tokens regularly.
Right.
So when you look at this on the leader side, not the unit side, but when you're looking at this on the leader side, your obvious comparisons are going to be set 1 Luke, and then, most recently Lando. The problem is both of those are also requiring you to have played a unit to activate them, as well as an additional condition on top of that, right? Mm-hmm. Lando, presence in both lanes, Luke, the heroism. Here, it is just straight up pay 1 and give a shield token to a creature or a Spectre unit, full stop. So even if you don't play a unit, you can still give something a shield. And when you're playing Vigilance, when you're playing, a control deck, for example, a lot of times what you want to do is like play a takedown, and then if you have an extra resource, well, why not just give something an extra shield?
Right.
Who doesn't like more shields? So
Yeah.
when you think about it from that perspective, it's such a minor thing, but it's so major in application because you don't have to play the unit. And that is very often what is holding you back with these like vigilance-based leaders.
You know, and I could see people saying like, oh, how can you say it's less conditional when it needs to be either a creature or a specter, which seems like very specific traits. And, you know, again, it goes back to deck building. Obviously, if you're building this deck, you're going to include a lot of creature and specter. Therefore, you know, you're not going to have a hard time finding something to put a shield on in a deck that is built around this. So, you know, then you look at what the means of the shield is. It's easy. It's just 1 and tap. And so that's how it kind of becomes the easiest one. Now, on the leader side, he's a 3/6 Force Jedi Rebel Spectre, shielded as well, which is always nice on a leader. And then while you control another creature or specter unit, this unit gets +2/+2, which is kind of wild. So you can flip him on 6, but you might, and I will say probably, end up with a 5/8 shielded that is ready, of course, because he's deployed. He's your leader. So it's just going to be a tank when he comes out.
Absolute tank, and has all of the traits you want. Like, it's trait soup up there. Force Jedi Rebel Spectre are all just absolutely outstanding traits to have. You know, you were talking about the conditional nature of some of the creatures, but from what we've seen so far, we know that there's, in my opinion, an outstanding Ezra in the new set, right? The 3/5 for 3. There's old Ezra, and then depending on what colors you start pairing with Sabine, right? Just set one Sabine is going to be really annoying if you can consistently put shields on her. If you are looking at, again, set one Kanan even, stuff like that. I think that you're not going to be happy. The other thing that I just want to remind folks is that there's, you know, decent ships, especially after jump to light speed, that also have that Spectre trait. So you can get a lot of mileage in the air with this leader as well. I'm so excited to play with Kanan.
I think you could make an argument to play him in Cunning as well, and then lean more into the Spectre side of things. We've got like Chopper and Ezra and one of the Sabines and all that. So, you know, it really depends. I feel like there's a couple good options, but another card we're going to look at soon, I think, kind of pushes it over the edge. It's not this one, but this is a card you're going to want to put in there. It's Ezra Bridger.
Yes. Yeah, Ezra Bridger is a house. It is a 3-cost ground unit, Heroism, Vigilance. This is the one that I was just alluding to. It is a 3/5 stat line.
It's crazy.
Also has Force Jedi Rebel Spectre. So again, all the traits. And then wait, there's more. On attack, you may give an experience token to another creature or specter unit. Now, that is obvious pairing with Kanan, right? Because they're both caring about both creatures and specters. But it is something that I'm very happy that we have with Ezra, because like even in the art, right, we have the space whales in the background, and we know that Ezra, you know, one way or the other has had a lot of just neat interactions with creatures along the way. Like when you think about the Revels show, whether it's, you know, the cats, the wolves, the space whales, I really kind of like and dig that what they're doing with Kanan and this version of Ezra and et cetera, is they're saying, okay, it's not just Spectre, it's Spectre and creatures, because their faction, I would say more so than any other, has had those interactions when you think about it.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you know, in the Ahsoka show too. I mean, he wasn't riding the whales. He did ride the whales. Well, he got there anyway. That's how he got there to begin with. But you know, everyone else rode whales too.
Even in the Ahsoka show, we have Sabine on the you know, the new mount, right? The dog-like mount as well. So
they love creatures. What can you say? I'm just thinking about ECL with this. You know, throw an XP on one of your other units, attack in. He's probably going to live because he's got 5 HP. Just 3/5 for 3 is a really, really great stat line, especially for an uncommon. Wow. Moving on to Jedi Guardian. Force Jedi traits. This is 5 for a 4/8. So pretty decent stat line. And then while this unit is defending, it gets +2/+0. So if anyone attacks into it, it's going to be a 6/8 for 5, which is kind of crazy. It definitely fits the Guardian term. This is also the first card we've looked at besides Revan that has that legendary bar down at the bottom too. So, or legends, I should say, not legendary, legends. So it's from the quote unquote non-canon Star Wars stuff. But I love that they're including it. I love that we have this stuff, and it's a reference to some of the games from back in the day, Knights of the Old Republic, and then the Old Republic MMO. We're gonna see some some nods to that, and I think it's really cool. I like how this game is reaching very broadly into the Star Wars lore, right? From a lot of different sources, and so it's neat to have some kind of game-centric stuff in there too.
Man, if we get some stuff from SWTOR, I'm gonna nerd out for my Darth Malgus.
I mean, just wait. Maybe you haven't seen all the reveals. I don't know. We keep moving on here to you could talk about Anakin, one of our legendaries for the set.
Yeah, Anakin Skywalker. This is another unit I'm a huge fan of. This is a 6-cost ground unit that is just vigilance. So you can play him, light side or dark side. And turns out there's a reason you might want to do so. So this 6-cost gets you a 5/7 stat line with Force, Jedi, and Republic as the traits. When played, if there is a heroism card in your discard pile, you may give a unit -3/-3 for this phase. When played, if there is a villainy card in your discard pile, you may give a unit -3/-3 for this phase. Now, I actually think it was Nerd Parker on Blue Sky had said something about like really, really cool, but was, maybe a little concerned that this might end up being the hey, we have Luke at home sort of thing, because the obvious comparison is going to be Luke Skywalker.
I've seen that opinion a couple times. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think that's the case.
I agree with
so
you.
here's my hear me out cake, if you will, but instead it's for Anakin Skywalker. Not only is this playable in villainy without paying the tax, which is already a boon, and villainy doesn't have as many easy ways to do the -/. Like there are some just neutral blue stuff that exists, but when I think about the heroism blue card that costs 1, and if you've got the Force unit -2/-2, you've got Luke and so on and so forth. So this already gives you the villainy thing. It's also 1 cheaper as well. If you're playing some other cards like Bendu or things where you're not caring, or you specifically don't want something to have heroism or villainy, this gives you another card in your arsenal if you're trying to avoid those. But the real thing that jumps out to me, Chancellor Palpatine decks, if you're playing him with blue, he's great. But anytime, even if you're not, right? So think about there's the double blue Iden list that did really well at one of the events recently, right? That was one that was running the bounty hunter crew, and they were just paying the tax. And we've all seen decks where we do that. We pay the tax. There could be situations where you start incentivizing yourself to run some either heroism or villainy cards and just pay the tax, so that you can find ways to either discard it or get it in the discard pile. And then when that happens, what you get out of that is 2 separate when played triggers. And that's the thing that I really want to highlight with this. If you can find a way to solve the puzzle so you're consistently getting both, the reason that I like this, and the reason I don't think it's Luke at home, is when you play it, this could be like a 3-for-1, because you could take out 2 units and then still end up with your 5/7. And that's not something that Luke can do for you. And he's a round cheaper. So
yeah, exactly.
I really like this, and I actively want to experiment when he comes out with ways that I can try to make it work.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think people, claiming it's just a worse Luke are not reading the card or really thinking about it very well.
Also, one last thing.
Yeah.
The 6 cost is super relevant because that is that threshold for Energy Conversion Lab. And while we have just been talking about how good Data Vault is, Energy Conversion Lab is also still good, and that is something that Luke cannot do, whereas this Anakin is something where you could theoretically give a -3, give a -3, and ambush something, and with 7 health likely be surviving.
That's the thing. I look at this too, and I'm like, well, I would put this in my blue-green Caning Creatures deck almost, right? Because, if you ECL him, then you're going to theoretically -3/-3 something bigger. He's going to attack into it and live. You've got this body on the board. You got good value out of the -3/-3. I think he's great, but obviously Chancellor Palpatine Blue, which we already knew is probably the strongest version of that list, although I think his red is still decent too. But the blue version is what people have really been pushing, and this is just perfect in that. This is just straight up, I think, stronger than Luke in that specific scenario, because you're going to get the -6/-6. You're going to get it a turn earlier. And sure, you don't have restore 3, but who cares? Because your leader is restoring 2 like every other turn. So, you're not going to be missing that restore as much as in a different blue deck. So I don't think you can really... I feel like you can't really compare him to the Luke Skywalker Legendary, honestly. I think it's apples to oranges. I think they have different purposes. They have different use cases, different purposes. They have similar abilities in that they give something a minus, and if you add those things, it's the same minus. But I think that's honestly, in my opinion, where the situations, where the similarities end, And then you have to look at, okay, what's this good in? And I think you're going to find some stuff.
I also just adore that he works so well with Chancellor Palpatine because
makes sense,
Anakin being his sought after apprentice, the guy he's trying to turn, it just makes sense. It
is really definitely Chancellor Palpatine support, that's for sure.
I really do enjoy when the flavor meets the function.
Yeah, they do such a good job of that.
To my gripe later in this episode.
They generally do a good job of that.
They generally
do. I think 9 times out of 10 they do. Let's move on. Cure wounds. Use the Force. Lose your Force token. In case you're new here, the Force token is something that you'll be able to achieve through various methods in the next set. We've seen some bases that give you the Force token. I think when you attack with a Force unit was one of them. But basically, it's a one-time resource that you can use and then have to find a way to regain. But if you do it this time, you get to heal 6 for 1. But it is from a unit, so I'm not super thrilled about this card. I think it's a fine, limited card maybe, but I think it's one of those ones that we're probably not going to see in Premier play.
Yeah, I fully agree. When I saw this, I was like,
it's fine.
This is fine in limited. And then, if you pull Kanan, because he's a rare leader, so you're not going to have access to him all the time. But if you pull him, that's really where you want that sort of thing, right? Somebody where you've got like 8 health on them, where you can take full advantage of the 6. I think that's the thing that hurts this the most, is there's just not a lot of times where you're going to get the full 6 healing out of this.
Yeah.
It's overkill. In the future, right? If we have anything that says like excess healing does something, then maybe we want to revisit that. That's one of those things where I would earmark this and try to remember it for later. But current day.
I just had the greatest idea for a leader. What if there was a leader that said any excess healing you do to anything becomes damage that you deal to your opponent or to a unit or something? I don't have any basis in Star Wars lore for this, but I think it'd just be a cool way to build a deck.
Well, it could be like Hoth Luke, right? Because that's who's on the Art of It Binds All Things, and that's like if you heal something, deal that much damage. So maybe instead it's like a different version, and or it could be like a Jedi Consular or something from SWTOR when we finally get those, and maybe that's their gimmick.
I want a leader though. But then it'd be too strong if you could just heal things that had full health and just do max damage with it. You'd have to have like, it has to heal at least it has to if you heal a damaged unit, then you get to do this, and there's overhealing. So anyway, we'll move on. We'll do our theory crafting later. Tell us about the Sith Legionnaire.
They've got sick fashion choices, right? Just awesome digs. So Sith Legionnaire, this is a 2-cost ground unit. It's in Villainy and Command. Has a 2/2 stat line. It is a Sith and a Trooper. This is another card that has that Legends treatment because it's again from a game, but just has outstanding armor. If you're not familiar, have not seen the art, so that's the reason I was making the joke. The text on the card says, while you control another Villainy unit, this unit gets +2/+0. So you pay 2, and as long as you have another Villainy unit, you get a 4/2 stat line on the board, which is pretty good.
Yeah, I would say so. It's one of those cards that is just going to be a nice kind of filler card for a lot of decks, right? Where I could almost see putting this in like Wat Tambor even, right? Because it's a decent stat line, gets buffed by your Villainy Battle Droid token, and can do even more damage, etc., etc. So I think it's just one of those nice little support cards that is going to be decent and limited, and then it's also just going to be potentially a way to fill out a deck where you need something that does something, but you don't have like a standout card to put in that slot,
Yeah, the thing that really resonated with me for this is that it's almost like a mosquito, because it's very easy to deal with. Like, you can swat this. It's only got 2 health. A lot of ways that you can deal with it. But if you don't, like, it's going to be a pain in your neck, right? Hitting for 4, or even just trading, right? Being able to trade up, spend 2 on a unit and trade into something that costs 3 or 4 even. That's problematic for your opponent. So it kind of like just forces their attention. The other thing that I'm just keeping an eye on is the trait, right? Because it has the Sith trait. If we have a bunch of things that care about Sith units, and this is a cheap option, a cheap way to achieve that, could be really good. It's also got the Trooper trait. And after we saw Enoch last week, hey, it's a great way to fill your discard pile with Troopers.
Yep, I would say so. I mean, there's a lot of Trooper synergy is probably one of the most throw synergies in the game as far as cards that interact with it. So anytime you see a Trooper come up, you're like, all right, well, that's something to keep in mind. All right, Jedi Counselor, or Consular, I should say. Not Counselor, Consular. 2 for a 1/4. Command and Heroism. Force and Jedi, another Legends card. And then action, exhaust and use the Force. Play a unit from your hand. It costs 2 less. So, I mean, that can be a pretty big discount, because I don't know if there's a way to just like have the Force right away on your first turn or get it on your first turn. But if there is, being able to do this on your 3 resource turn and play a 5 cost seems pretty decent.
Yeah, I'm glad that you highlighted that. So I think that this card is one of those things that looks really impressive on paper, and then in practice you're going to find some clunkiness to it. It is a common, which means that in limited, especially like in draft, it's something where I would be happy picking some of these up, because when the game is a little slower paced, you're more likely to get a big use out of it, because you do want to set it up, as you were saying. If you're playing this turn 1, then turn 2, you're going to have some way to get the Force. The easiest way would be if, there's something that costs 1 or 2 that lets you get the Force. I know that there's the 1/2 cost action, for example. And if that's the case, then while you can't ramp all the way up to a 5 cost, being able to, say use the action as removal, give you the Force, and then turn around and use it with this activation to play a unit behind it is still a powerful play. And I really feel like if this sees any sort of constructed play at all, that's the most likely way that we will see it used, is where you are using it to, set up an action. It also could be something where you're like ambushing a Force unit with one of the Force bases to give you the Force, and then after you've played the ambush unit, you play something else with a discount, et cetera, et cetera. I just don't think that we're ever going to see this be just straight like a ramp up to something expensive card, unless it sits on the table for a turn or 2.
Yeah, that's probably right. And you also have to think about the thing we've mentioned before, whereas what is the burden of, your Force token going to be for the average deck? Like, what are you going to want to save the Force for? Is this going to be worth it, right? I could see going back to Kanan creatures again. If you're running blue-green creatures, I don't know. Are there going to be a lot of ways to use your Force token with a bunch of creatures in your deck? Maybe that's a scenario where you have it a little bit more free to use it on things like this. But so that's one of the things I'm kind of keeping in mind as I see these cards revealed is, what is going to be the tax on my Force token? What am I going to need to use it for? What can I wait to use it for? All that kind of stuff. Oh, this is one I was excited about. Go for it.
Malakili. I'm so excited for this as well. Not just because of the card, but a very good friend of mine that I used to play the Star Wars Decipher game with. I say used to because he has passed away. This was one of his favorite characters. Like, he loved Malakili and he loved the Rancor. And he would play like Rancor decks when we would play the old Decipher game. So when I saw this, it was like just like a flashback moment. So Malakili, this is a 2-cost ground unit. It is just in command, has a 1/4 stat line, has the Underworld trait, then also has some amazing text. The first creature unit you play each phase costs 1 less. But wait, there's more. If a friendly creature unit would deal damage to a friendly unit, prevent that damage. And that's important because when you think about like the Rancors, right? Whether it's the Wild Rancor or even just Jabba's Rancor, when you're playing those, you're potentially dealing damage to friendly units. So Malakili lets you stop that, and then also lets you ramp into them even faster. So when you are playing Jabba, if you use Jabba's bounty and you have Malakili on the board, suddenly you're playing Jabba's Rancor dirt cheap. And that's not even counting if you've, ramped earlier in the game with DJ Death Star or a resupply or something. I think we could see Rancors come down pretty early in games in a Jabba deck.
Oh, for sure. I love it when cards kind of bring back old leaders that were like, they were close. Like Jabba was always like decent. It was just never like a world beater, right? So this is a card that can kind of maybe push it into a little bit stronger of a deck. But either way, yet another card I would put in Kanan, right? Play this on turn 1, play a creature on turn 2, either a 3 cost for 2, and then you give it a shield, something like that, or just play a 4 cost, right? So I think there's a lot of versatility in how you can use them as well. It's funny. It made me. You mentioned the Decipher Star Wars CCG. It made me look up the Malakili card when I saw this, and I was like, "What did the old Malakili card do?" So let me read it for you. Actually, let me see if I can just hold on. Let me copy it. And for those of you who can you just paste stuff into OBS? No, you can't. Can you?
Not easily.
Hold on, Charmer is gonna edit this out. I promise.
No,
we're gonna add an image. I'm telling you, Charmer is gonna edit this out. It's gonna be so smooth. You're never gonna even know. I'm going to my desktop to grab the image right now to bring it onto the screen because I think it's fun to do this kind of thing. Oh, he's huge. He's huge.
He is huge.
Here's a Decipher CCG Malakili. We'll take a look at him because it's always fun to do. We said this was a Star Wars podcast, right? Star Wars card game podcast. So we go back to this every once in a while. But here he is. The symbol in the upper left means he's an alien. The dot means he's unique. The thing on the right is his destiny number. We won't get into that. But I love the flavor text on these old cards. Carillion. Did you know that Malakili was Carillion? Well, now you do. Worked for Circus Horrificus.
That's my favorite.
I know, right? Disapproves of Jabba's treatment of the Rancor, plotting with Lady Valerian to steal the immense beast away from Jabba's palace. So a little backstory, wondered why he cried in Jedi when the Rancor died? Because he was about to free the poor, abused animal, and then that villain, Luke Skywalker, dropped a door on its head, and poor Malakili. He's got power 2, ability 1. Ability is kind of like, toughness. The cost is actually the lower left in the white box, and then his forfeit value is in the black. We were not going to get into that either. That's a whole podcast in itself. But listen to this card text. This kind of thing was typical in the game, right? Because you had these locations, and you actually deployed things at locations like a board game.
Standard text. This isn't even like a weird card.
This will not make any sense if you're listening to this or if you've never seen this game. But this was very typical. This level of detail and card and location specific stuff. But Malakili's text is deploys only on Tatooine. During your control phase, may steal one creature or unoccupied creature vehicle present. Creatures at the same site, except for the Sarlacc, do not attack and cannot be attacked. So, he kept control of your creatures. He got to take creatures. He was a lot of fun in that game too. But I'm very happy that the legacy of good Malakilis in Star Wars card games lives on in this one.
I was going to make the joke that my band name is Circus Horrificus, but I've actually decided that if we ever start a team for the podcast, we should just call our team Circus Horrificus.
We absolutely should. We absolutely should. You're right.
Before we move on, there's one last thing that I want to highlight because this comes up, at least in the current meta with like Krennic, for example. It's something that I've abused in a few different decks now, and Malakili is right in that same vein. So the text is the first creature unit you play each phase. And he is not a creature. So that means in situations where you have like Malakili and Salacious Crumb in your opening hand, you get to drop both.
Yeah.
You can drop him and then Crumb becomes free. Similarly, if you're playing him later in the game, right? If you're trying to play him and a Rancor or play him and what is it? The Terran, I can never say it. Terran Tadic?
The one that, the other one that was revealed?
Yeah, the other one
Tyranitek?
that was revealed. Yeah, Tyranitek. Yeah, sure. I can never say it right.
Tyranitek? We're gonna do this again when the card comes up, but the other
Yeah,
one,
we'll do it again.
All right.
Yeah. So, but again, it's one of those things where Malakili, you know, if you're playing him first and then you're following it up with a creature, you can still get that discount as long as you haven't played any other creature before you played Malakili. He only cares about the first creature, and even, you know, stuff like the Fear Knock that was revealed as well.
The attuned Fear Knock,
yeah. All sorts of stuff that, you know, when you start thinking about a Kanan creature deck, you can get a lot of value. I like this guy a lot.
Yeah. Let's move on. Out of the creatures and into the Sifo-Dyas. You ever wondered what Jedi Master Sifo-Dyas looked like? I always did. And there you go. I'm sure there was other art of him out there, but I didn't know this. By the way, this is a nice piece of art. I really like Coruscant in the background and all that. I'm pretty sure it's Coruscant. Looks like Coruscant. Anyway,
No, that's New Jersey.
Oh, my bad. I've never been to New Jersey. That's why I didn't recognize it.
It's not.
Actually, you know what? I have been to New Jersey now that I think about it. IPL 3 at Atlantic City was technically in New Jersey, I guess, right? Atlantic City's in New Jersey, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
You're the most east of us, being in Michigan. So
I've only been to like Newark and one of the like suburbs because of when I was doing the Battle Spirits Pro Tour. I was in New Jersey.
Okay, well, Sifo-Dyas, prominent resident of New Jersey. Cost 5. He's a 4/4, command only, Force Jedi Republic trait. This is interesting when defeated, though. I'm very excited about this. When defeated, search the top 8 cards of your deck for any number of clone units with a combined cost of 4 or less and discard them. Put the other cards in the bottom of your deck in any order. For this phase, you may play those cards from your discard pile for free. So you don't get to play them all at once, like a U-Wing reinforcement, but you get to play them for free, each costing an action, etc. But I think this guy is just great support for stuff like Nala Se, maybe Rex, but like I really liked Nala Se decks for a little while when Twilight came out, and so I'm kind of excited to go back and put together a blue-green Nala Se again and put in some Sifo-Dyas.
Yeah, the interesting thing is that the templating for this is the exact same templating that is on Cobb Vanth. And when the pilots were revealed, I remember, I think it was Tyler Parrott had shared something that said, you know, if they had done the proper future proofing, then they would have changed the Cobb Vanth templating, and that he was going to like be the outlier. But this is still the exact same wording as Cobb. So it will work with Clone Pilot. I believe that's the only...
I think there is that only one, yeah.
Yeah, it's just the generic 2/2 for 2. So it's not like as exploitable as Cobb Vanth.
Yeah.
But it is something that, again, I would keep an eye on in the future, because if we ever get other Clone Pilots, this would be something that could potentially fetch them.
Yeah, I think that's maybe why they didn't bother to change it, because there is only one case and it's not a super strong case at the moment, but it is worth considering down the line. That's for sure. Either way, I think it's cool to get more clone support, and I feel like we're seeing a little bit in this set of what we saw in set 4, where there's just a lot of neat support for previously existing leaders and archetypes. I love that. I'm glad that that support is maybe becoming a theme in these sets going on. And, you know, you got to think, too, part of it is support for existing sets, and part of it is to, like, make sure that thing is still around when the rotation happens, too, I suppose. But for now, I think I'm going to enjoy the clone stuff.
All right, hear me out.
All right, I'm ready.
I want to... So whenever you have these effects, they care about the printed cost of the card and not necessarily some of the tax stuff. So I want to play this with Thrawn and double his when defeated, and so you just like explode with like 4 2-drops and like have one of them, or you could even not even play them all, right? You could find like Echo, like the one that gets the +2/+2 or whatever, and then like just leave the other one in the discard pile or something, or Yeah, there's just
The Thrawn thing is really interesting.
there's some
You
neat
could
stuff
just
I kind of want to mess around with this now.
clone Thrawn decks now. Yeah. All right. I'm all for it. I'm down for that. Let's move on. There it is. Terrentatech.
Terran Terrentatic. That's what I keep wanting to say.
I went to
but
high
don't
school
feel
with
like
a
that's right.
Terrentatic. No,
Yeah.
I didn't. Terrentatak. It's a creature. Tell us about the Terrentatak.
All right, so this is a 5-cost ground unit. It's just in command, has a 5/5 stat line. It is a creature, which is the important part. And then also, while an opponent controls a force unit, this unit gains ambush. Now, a 5 for a 5/5 is, not the greatest stat line, but it's definitely not the worst. However, when you consider the sheer number of force units that are going to be in the set, and then you also remember that this is a common, this is something that you absolutely want if you're playing in limited and you're playing green at all. This is a powerhouse common, I feel like, in this set.
I think it'll be a good, at the very least, in Premier, it'll be a good sideboard card, depending on how the meta shakes out. If everything's running force, like a lot of things are running pilots now, you'll want to have this kind of specific meta counter in there. I mean, 5 for a 5/5 with ambush, that is good.
Seems pretty good. And it could be 4 for a 5/5 with ambush if you've got Malakili.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Wow. All right. Hey, here we go. This is what we were talking about. Yeah, some good old Star Wars, Knights of the Old Republic stuff. HK-47, probably one of the best characters to ever exist in anything Star Wars. Great assassin droid. 2, cost 2. I'm half asleep right now. I woke up at like 5 a.m. by the way. I had to go and get my passport renewed. Anyway, I'm dying. 2 for aggression and villainy. A 2/4 for the stat line. Sith and droid. When an enemy unit is defeated, deal 1 damage to its controller's base. Simple, deadly, perfect for eliminating those annoying meat bags sitting across the table at you. And if you think that was just a really mean thing to say, he says it all the time. That's HK-47's thing. It's not just me.
This card seems silly to me.
Yeah.
It's interesting because historically we haven't seen too many legendaries that are legendary, I think, strictly because of their power level. A lot of times it's not just power level, but also like complexity or whether or not you would want to run into it in limited or whatever. But This is one where I look at it, I'm like, yeah, this is a legendary because it's just really good for the cost. A 2/4 for 2 is above rate. It's the same reason why I love the Cunning R2D2 because his filtering ability is okay, but the stat line is just outstanding. This, like the R2D2, is also a droid, but this is also a Sith. So again, if we see things that care about Sith, this has got it. Yep. And then the when an enemy unit is defeated thing isn't even once per turn. Like that's the part that just continues to blow my mind, right? When I even thought this could be entirely still playable if it said ground unit, but it's not. Like you shoot down ships from the sky, you're still dealing that damage. And so when I was thinking like, okay, I could play this and then against a Green Vader drop like bombing run on the sky and also deal like, I don't know, 5 or 6 damage if they have a ton of TIE fighters or whatever.
Yeah, right.
Like, that's just absurd. Like this card is really good.
Yeah.
And I have a hard time believing that any red villainy deck is not going to want to be running this.
I think there's zero downside to running this in your deck. It's got a great amount of health. 2 damage is fine, whatever. But just, the ability is so good, both in the early game as just a first turn play. It's fine there. And then as a later game play too, like you said, playing it as a combo piece is good. If you're curious why this droid would be Sith, it's because in the lore, it was a droid made specifically to hunt Jedi. And so made by the Sith to hunt Jedi. So that's why. I love it. I need a playset. It's all you.
This next card is another Legends card, but it is an event. It is a 4-cost event named Deathfield. It does have the Force trait. So again, anything that can search for Force cards can go find this. It is villainy and aggression. and it allows you to deal 2 damage to each non-vehicle enemy unit. If you control a force unit, draw a card. So just a flat 2 damage to everything not a vehicle, which up until now means all space units are exempt. Now, the reason I say that, I don't know anything that you all don't know. However, I have a sneaking suspicion we're going to get space whales because we've seen it in Ezra's art. We've seen the creature theme. And if we don't,
That'd be awesome.
I'll be honest, I'll be a little disappointed. So like I would expect there to be space whales, in which case this would deal damage to them because they would be a non-vehicle unit in space in my mind. But anyway, the point is this is a great like AoE damage ability. And even if you're not drawing the card, it kind of doesn't matter. When you can deal damage and it's only to enemy units, that is a big swing, right? We've already seen how powerful Overwhelming Barrage is because it's a one-sided AoE ability. This is cheaper, and it's something that you would want to do. And if you pair it with HK, well, then suddenly now you're potentially dealing a ton of damage to their base as well as emptying their board. And then, I also might get to draw a card if I have a force unit. Like, what's not to love? This card is outstanding. I also am a big fan of the art as well, and I'm really excited for like the hyperspace treatment of it.
Well, they also announced there's going to be a playmat with this art too, so that's going to be cool. I forget exactly. I think that might be the one you just get for signing up for the Galactic Championship. I believe I'd have to go back in the spoilers and look, but I believe that's where it came from. Yeah, I think, don't quote me on this. I could be wrong, but I believe it is just the one you get for buying one of the ticket packages for the Galactic Republic.
All right, well, I will quote you. You heard it here
Don't
first.
quote me on that one. I said don't quote me on that one for a reason. I also will say this is sad for me to see because it is a hard counter for Wat Tambor. All my battle droids, and I've got 6 of them out there. HK-47 and this will just wreck me. So, yeah. They aren't vehicles, even though they aren't alive. Well, we got the Attuned Fearnock, another creature, a 2 for a 4/1, and hidden as well, which is kind of wild, actually. It's 4/1, but it can't be attacked, so you can play it on your first turn. You don't have to worry about it getting ran into on your opponent's. Well, actually, you could on your opponent's first action for the next turn, but you could play it and then take initiative, basically. And sure, it could still get pinged, but it's one of those things where heroism, aggression loves these early plays to just get in there for that chip of damage before it dies, and this could be another card kind of in that vein.
Yeah, when I saw this, to me, this is like the heroism answer to the Sith Trooper. Both of them are very much, they're things where you care more about the potential of dealing 4 damage to something than you do about the survivability of the unit. They're both brittle, but they both are 2 drops with the ability to potentially trade up with something that's more expensive. So again, kind of that mosquito mentality. If you don't swat it, it's going to be a pain in your neck.
Yeah, and another thing where maybe you play it hidden on the first turn, you take initiative, your first action for your second turn, you use Kanan to give it a shield. If you're playing red with Kanan. So, every time you see creature, think, what can Kanan do with this creature? And that might be strong too. Let's move on to another red card here. I thought it was going to be the other red creature that was revealed, but no, it's Jedi Knight instead.
Yeah, I actually really like this card. Jedi Knight is a 3-cost ground unit, heroism and aggression. It is a 3/3 stat line, but it does have force and Jedi traits, and I think that that's a big boon for it. But also, when played, if you have the initiative, deal 2 damage to an enemy ground unit. So historically, we've had to work pretty hard to get cheap force units, especially when we start thinking about things that like want to wear lightsabers, for example. This would be a nice way to do that with upside, in my opinion, because again, the when played, yes, it's conditional, but like when you pull it off, this is a removal, potentially on a body. Very, very much so in that situation that you were just talking about. If you don't have Kanan or whatever, but maybe you're playing limited or whatever, if you start with the Attuned Fearnock, then they do something, and then you have the initiative next turn. Because you have the initiative, you can immediately play this as your turn 2 play and hopefully get rid of whatever they played on the ground. And now your Fearnock has, free roam to go to the base or do whatever. So I just think that when you consider this as like a nice, I have the initiative like follow-up play to protect whatever you've played turn one. There's a lot to like there.
Yeah, I'm most excited, I think, about the same thing, the thing that you mentioned earliest, where it's another less expensive unit with force. And so that lets you, put lightsabers on it, and things like that, and just kind of
Force throw.
Yeah, force throw. Oh man, force throw. That's right. Did you notice too that all the force / Jedi cards this expansion have that background symbol in the behind the text?
Yeah, I didn't know if that was specifically because they're also all part of the Legends thing, right? So all of the like Jedi blanks, if you're not familiar, these were the classes you could play in Knights of the Old Republic, and so like you could play as a Jedi Knight, a Jedi Consular, et cetera, et cetera. The Jedi Sentinel is another one.
But what I'm saying is that if you look at every character card that has Force that's been revealed so far, Legends or not, has that like sort of icon behind the text. So I think it's like a thing to designate the Force cards.
Yeah, I'd only noticed it with the Legend stuff, but
yeah all the Force ones have it
for the Force stuff. Interesting.
Yeah. Everything with the Force tag has it. I'm going back and looking through all the reveals so far. Yeah, and it's definitely something connected to the Force tag, so that's cool. Oh, you have kind of like cool. the different sort of like you've got like the sun on the left and the half shaded thing in the middle, and then the dark on the right. So it's kind of like the different sides of the Force. So I think that is the Force icon. Is there like a logo for the Force now that I don't know about?
Yeah, that's interesting, and it appears to be.
It symbolizes the Force.
For lack of a better term, it reminds me of like a yin and a yang, but it's not, right? Like it's
it clearly symbolizes the Force, the different sides of the Force, and then you have the middle that's kind of half and half.
Yeah, the middle is half and half, and then you have the dark circle on the right and the light circle on the left, opposite ends of whatever. So the balance of the Force, the light and the dark.
I know someone out there is like, I can't believe they didn't notice that right at the beginning. I knew it right away. I'm like, well, congratulations.
Hey, guess what? I'm old.
Yeah. Guess what?
All you're doing is bullying the elderly.
Guess what? Charmer's old. So be nice to him, all right?
Look, I am going to need bionic arms soon. So just watch what you're saying, because once I get them, it's over.
Look out, state of Michigan. Let's move on to Marin. Did I do the last one or did you? Charmer's old. That's why I don't know this.
I did it because it was the Jedi Knight, and I was very excited for it.
Well, I'll do this one. Look, it's the Force icon again because it's Marin.
Hey, this is a Force Knight.
Yeah. Oh, he's old. Just laugh along. 3 for a 2/5. Aggression only. On attack, you may discard a card from your hand. If you do, deal 2 damage to a unit. Ooh, Kylo Ren support, you say? Yes, I believe it is.
And potentially Anakin Skywalker support.
Oh, yeah. That is.
Because again, he just cares about you having something in the discard pile. You don't have to have played it.
Oh, so you're saying
if you want to play Kylo with Anakin, or even just if you're playing Marin in an Anakin style deck or whatever, and you could use her on attack to discard something that say has villainy or heroism that is opposite of what your main deck is.
Yeah.
You would still activate him.
Yeah, very good point. I like it. You can discard it and not have to play it.
Another thing to consider, again, if you are in this red-blue mindset that I am with potential Anakin pairings, is that you can target yourself with Force Throw. So you could just run something, like if you're playing a villainy deck, for example, you could run some heroism cards, and then when you Force Throw yourself, use that as removal still.
Yeah.
Then that gets something in your discard pile to turn on Anakin.
It's true. Wow. Anakin's so good. Let's move on to a creature.
Ukata. This is a 3-cost ground unit, just aggression, 4/2 stat line, and hidden, but it is a creature. So what you're looking at is the attuned Fear Knock, except it's got 1 extra health for 1 more, but it's also not heroism bound.
Mm-hmm. It's another Legends card as well. So I think I think these were some of the things you could beat up on in the Old Republic games, if I remember right. It's been a while. But or what was this in, like, Jedi Survivor and all that? Embarrassingly, I just have not had time to play those.
No, I feel like pretty much everything that I've seen from the Legend stuff was all references specifically to
Me
the
too.
Knights of the Old Republic stuff.
Yeah, or the Old Republic MMO. There was some of that too. But yeah, I agree. All right. Liberated by Darkness. Cost 5. Cunning, Villainy. Use the Force. If you do, take control of a non-leader unit. At the start of the regroup phase, its owner takes control of it. So it's like Change of Heart for 1 less, but you have to use the Force. So I think if you got a Force tech and you're playing Villainy, this seems like a very strong card to include. Seems like a pretty good use of the Force to me.
Yeah, it's also, again, got that Force trait. So anything that lets you search for or interact with, like if you've played a Force card or finding a Force card, unlike Change of Heart, you could find this with Owen Lars, for example.
That's true. Owen Lars is not heroism locked, so you could be running blue yellow and do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, it's got
Owen Lars liberated by darkness after he was burned alive.
liberated by barbecuing, I think was the end result there. Well, let's move on that happy note.
All right, Jedi Sentinel. So again, one of the classes that you could play. This is a 4-cost ground unit. This is Cunning and Heroism. Has a 5/4 stat line, is Force and Jedi traded, and has, while the Force is with you, this unit gains Sentinel.
Cool. I like it.
Yeah.
Just a nice, I mean, I say I like it, and then I'm like, oh, we're giving Cunning Sentinel, I guess. Which I think maybe they have 1 or 2. They've got Gamorrean Guard, which is also conditional Sentinel, so it's not unheard of in the aspect. But again, whenever you attach Force and Jedi to something, that opens up a whole new avenue of options. It's higher attack than defense. It's basically like a 1-up from Echo-based Defender in every category, except for the conditional Sentinel. But yeah, I think it could be useful in specific decks that are kind of built around making it work.
Sure. It's also one of those interesting things where the stat line alone is like kind of attractive. Yes, it could still die to open fire or whatever, but
sure,
when you can get 5 attack for a 4 cost, I think that is a nice spot to be. And as somebody who keeps trying to make the leader work, what I immediately thought of was Fennec Shand, because
you were going to bring up
that
Fennec.
that 4 cost is her threshold for trying to ambush stuff from hand, right? So being able to pay 5 to ambush for 5 damage is still pretty good.
Yeah, I would say so. I was thinking about the Force icon a little bit more too, and because the 2 bases we've seen revealed so far both say if you've attacked with a Force icon, get the Force. It says exactly what it says is when a friendly Force unit attacks, the Force is with you. You create that Force token. So I guess having that icon on all your Force units is just an easy way to be like, oh, it's a Force unit, and to remind yourself to not forget to give yourself the Force token. So it might be like a ease of use thing. I'll have to ask. I'm curious about that. All right, moving on to the Jedi Mind Trick. I know you had beef with this card. Let's hear it. I do have beef with this card.
Hear it. First of all, it's not Jedi Mind Trick. It's just Mind Trick. Though the art is very much Obi-Wan, doing the Jedi Mind Trick. So Mind Trick. This is a 2-cost event. It is both a Force card and a Trick card as far as traits go. It is Cunning and Heroism. And it says, exhaust any number of units with a combined power of 4 or less. If you control a Force unit, those units lose all abilities and can't gain abilities for this phase. So again, this is very interesting to me because I would have expected it to maybe be like ground units or something, but apparently if you want, you could just exhaust 4 TIE Fighter tokens with this, which just cracks me up.
Very sleepy pilots.
Yeah, sleepy pilots, go to sleep. So there is that, and obviously the flexibility of any 4 power or less is, I think, potentially really powerful. The lose abilities thing is also pretty relevant if you're trying to turn off like when defeated abilities. So being able to exhaust something so it can't attack you and then trading into it where you can maybe deny a benefit. What's not to love? I'll tell you what's not to love. Let me tell you, I got
All right.
beef with this card.
I'm ready.
It should not work with Watto. Watto, poor Watto, not only can he get mind tricked in the game, which he's not supposed to be able to get mind tricked, unless you're trying to tell me that Qui-Gon was just like really bad at doing the mind trick, but like I don't buy it.
Or Watto was really smart.
Yeah.
But that's your point.
My point is that Watto is also easily mind tricked because he's only a 1 power card. You can mind trick Watto and his friends.
Yeah.
It just feels wrong, okay?
It would have, and I mean, would it have killed them to put a little bit of text on the Watto card that said cannot be affected by mind trick? You know, I know putting specific stuff in your game like that adds confusion points, but come on. A little bit of flavor never hurt anybody,
here's
right?
The thing. We have like I'll call like cultural or, you know, planetary racial traits for things, right? Like we've got Wookiee, we've got Twi'lek. You could have just given us whatever Watto's is and then just said like mind trick will exhaust any number of non-whatever units and just make them immune to mind tricks. Because like, let's be honest, how many other of like Watto's race are they ever going to print?
Well,
but it could have been an easy way to just get it in.
I mean, I think if we're going to bring up Watto, we have to bring up the Jabba the Hutt unit as well, because he could be mind tricked by the virtue of his lower power as well. Because he's got, what, 2 power, right? The set 1 Jabba. Yeah. And famously, a mind trick did not work on him, too. He's just too smart.
Let me even go further.
We need a longer list on this card.
This doesn't even say non-leader. So even your leader, Jabba the Hutt, can be exhausted.
That's true. There's a lot of leaders that could be exhausted by this, actually.
I was going to say, your Rey can get mind tricked and lose all her abilities, which is kind of insane.
Is she really all that smart, though? You saw the films.
Sure. But my point is, Watto shouldn't. All right?
Yeah.
Watto shouldn't.
That's egregious.
I'll go with Jabba too, but Watto especially, because that's like half his character.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, one of the most famous things, he's like, oh, you know, Jedi mind trick, but he says it in Huttese, obviously. And then Watto famously says, Jedi mind tricks don't work on me, only money. You know that. So it's like, so it's very clear in the lines in the films that they can't do this. So I don't know. I guess it would fill up the text box if it said this, except you can't do it to Jabba the Hutt or Watto. That's only one sentence. Come on, Fantasy Flight. Yeah. Where's the fantasy in this card?
Seriously though, all jokes aside, this card is pretty good.
It seems great. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. But you know, of course,
it shuts down Sabine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she's still learning. I don't know. They're pushing her.
No,
to
I just mean
Jedi.
in terms of power level of the game.
Oh,
no,
sure.
I just mean like when you think because it doesn't say non-leader, right?
Yeah,
like 4 power or less. Like you play a unit, they deploy their leader, you exhaust their leader and a friend, and then like maybe you take initiative and then just blow her up at the start of the next turn or whatever.
You could literally use this on Emperor Palpatine leader.
Yeah.
Because he's got 4 power, doesn't he?
I still laugh at the ships thing though, right? Like in my head, I wanna do this to like 2 A wings and 2 Y wings, right? Like just mind trick a fleet.
Yeah, you could use this on Chancellor Palpatine as well. Oh my gosh, you could use this on well, not Mace Windu. He's got 5 power. Never mind. But a good amount. You could use this. You could use mind trick on Obi-Wan Kenobi, the person doing the mind trick.
You can do it on Yoda.
Oh my gosh. This card needs to be, this one needs to go back to the drawing board. I'm sorry. The lore disconnect is just too big. How deep does the rabbit hole go?
You could wait. You could do it. You could do it to Palpatine and Yoda at the same time with one trick.
Arguably the 2 strongest Force users in the galaxy at the same time. Oh, come on. Worst unplayable card. I'm probably still going to play it.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But terrible card. All right, moving on. Forged Starfighter. 1 for a 1/1 villainy, hidden raid 1. kind of cool. Cool in a limited sense. It's got the Sith vehicle fighter tag, so fun tags there. But yeah, just a nice little basic common. I like it. Very usable, I think.
I'm still waiting to see like what the payoff is going to be for all these Sith that we're getting, right? Because this is a vehicle that has that Sith trait as well.
Yeah. Should we move on? Not much to say.
Yeah,
Darth
not much to
Tyrannus.
say.
A lot to say about this.
There's a lot to say about this card.
Oh,
this card is good, and
you can mind trick him though.
Especially with the Revan leader. You can in fact mind trick him though.
He's not that smart.
Is a bit of a travesty, but
we're never gonna let this go, by the way.
No.
Can it be mind trick?
Here's the thing. Darth Tyrannus, this is a 4-cost ground unit. It's villainy only. It is a Force, Separatist, and Sith. It has a 4/3 stat line, but it is shielded. And while the Force is with you, this unit gains ambush. And I love this for a few reasons. One, you don't have to use your Force. It just cares if you have it. So you can still use your Force later for a big effect if you need it. A 4/3 shielded with ambush is incredibly flexible. Obviously, you can have the shield eat the damage if you're trying to like go into something where he would die. But even if you're just using him to ambush a smaller unit, because you as active player can order the triggers, you could theoretically have him ambush something, take like 1 or 2 damage back, and then apply the shield to make him that much more sticky.
Right.
Again, he's only villainy, so he goes right into your Darth Revan deck, regardless of whatever your color pairing is. And then if you don't remember, Revan is when a friendly unit attacks and defeats a unit, then you can exhaust him and give an Experience token. So if he ambushes something, then you're going to end up with a 5/4 if you used your shield, or a 5 whatever that's still shielded after the fact, which is really good for 4.
Yeah, I think he's just an all-around great card. He's one of the special cards, so that means it looks like we'll be expecting to see him in. Did they say if it's Spotlight or Starter yet for Qui-Gon and Maul?
I think it's just Spotlight.
Okay. I think S is supposed to be like special, basically.
Well, yeah, it is special. I just meant like I thought when they made the switch to the Spotlights, they were doing it for the like foreseeable future.
That'd be fine with me, but I believe you're right. I can't remember.
For the first few sets to like help with onboarding, if that makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense to me. Either way, you'll be finding them in those decks. So there you go.
And that means likely your organized play stuff as well. Yeah,
that'd be cool.
It's historically been the case anyway.
Well, not with this set, though. Not with set 4. Now they're putting him as a hyperspace and hyperfoil in regular packs. That's what the special...
Yeah.
So we're both tired. Moving on. It's because Charmer's old, guys. That's why.
I am in fact old. It is also almost midnight where I am right now, so... It's
almost 9 p.m. for me. Darth Malik, Covetous Apprentice, 5 for a 4/7. Villainy only. Hey, why wouldn't he work with Revan? But he really works with Revan, right? Overwhelm, when played, if you control a Sith leader like Revan, you may ready this unit. So Darth Revan flips on 5, by the way. So let's review, all right? Let's go back to the Darth Revan flip turn here, where you will have, I'm just grabbing Revan stats right now just so I have it in front of me.
He's a 3/6, sir.
Yeah, I don't know why it's not. Anyway, you get a 3/6, right? And you also readied because he's a leader, but then you also get Darth Malik readied. Then when Darth Malik attacks, well, so you can play Darth Malik, attack and kill something, overwhelm, give an XP. Then you can flip Revan, and then when Revan attacks, does he gives an XP, or is it just when something else attacks? When a friendly unit attacks. Never mind.
So here's the sticky part. One. So again, we're tired, but let me help you out here. The sticking point is you have to deploy Revan first because Darth Malik says Sith leader unit.
Oh, unit. So you're right.
If he's in the
right.
leader spot, you cannot. So you do have to telegraph your turn. But that's okay, because hopefully whatever their best unit was the turn before you ate with Darth Tyrannus, right? So
Sure.
like the lead
true.
up to your flip turn is likely saying, okay, unless they have something that will just outright nuke my 3/6 leader, I'm going to get to play Darth Malak and then ready him and then swing into something with Overwhelm and then, you know, hopefully kill it and give him an experience, et cetera, et cetera. It's still a lot of like juice when you just even look at raw stats
totally.
for, hey, on my flip turn, I'm going to get a 3/6 and a 4/7, you know, potentially both ready.
Yeah, which is could be a 5/8 if you decide to give it the XP. You could make Darth Revan a 4/7, so it gets big. And we would re-record all of that, by the way, but we're lazy, so we're not going to.
Yeah.
All right.
Also, the other thing worth pointing out with Darth Revan, when he's on the leader side, it's not limited to once per turn. So in a situation where if you deploy Revan, play Malak, and they both kill something, then they both get an experience token.
That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And what also is crazy is that Darth Revan's lightsabers are coming to the party too.
Yeah, Darth Revan's lightsabers, 2-cost upgrade, just villainy. It is a +2/+2 in stats. You attach it to a non-vehicle unit, but if the attached unit is a Sith, it gains grit. And what I really love about this is, again, it just cares about Sith, not whether or not you're Force, like, you know, other lightsabers necessarily in the past. So what were we talking about earlier? HK, who's a Sith, or even just the Trooper, right? But I love the idea of, you know, you play HK turn 1 and then what do? You give him Darth Revan's lightsabers and you get this 4/6 droid running around killing meatbags. I just adore it.
I mean, he totally would do it too. That would be an HK-47 move to just pull out the lightsabers. And then giving him grit too. So he attacks into something, kills it, does a damage to your opponent's base by killing it, and then grit's online. Like, there's some crazy stuff. I'm really excited about Revan aggression. I think is the way you go, because that's how you get the HK-47. But yeah, I think it's going to be fun. Moving on to the opposite end of the Star Wars timeline, we've got Grogu, a 3 for a 1/6, heroism only and force only for the trait, hidden as well, and then action, exhaust, heal up to 2 damage from a unit. If you do, deal that much damage to a unit. So he is legendary, and I think this is another pretty strong legendary ability where you just get this free heal and potentially free unit damage as well.
Yeah, it is reusable, which is, I think, why this is a legendary, because you just don't want something like this to show up in limited.
Yeah.
When you see 6 health and a reusable, you know, 2-way swing, I heal something and damage something. What's not to love? I will say, what bothers me the most is he can be mind tricked.
He's just a kid. This one I'm not as surprised about. This one I'm okay with.
I'm just not letting it go.
I'm okay with this one. But I will say, too, that you do have to keep in mind with Grogu that it's there's no May part of his action. So, for instance, if there are no enemy units out there and you want to heal 2 damage from one of your units, you're going to have to do 2 damage to one of your units. So, like, he can't heal himself if he's the only thing out there without just doing the damage back to him, you know? So I do like that there is that little check in place there to keep him from getting, like, totally out of control, right? Where you have to do the damage, which means if there's nothing out there for your opponent, you have to do it to your side. It's still good.
Oh, man.
But there's a little check there. But wow, yeah, you could turn on grit pretty easily, though, with this, couldn't you?
Oh, yeah. For sure.
Oh. Now I'm thinking. Grogu as a grit enabler. Oh.
I'm thinking as well, because there was something that oh no, that's combat damage. I was thinking of the Phase 3 Dark Trooper, but I wanted to double check. I was trying to think, like, is there anything that gets bonuses when it takes damage? Because then you could have it take damage and then heal the damage to deal it right back and keep triggering bonuses.
Yeah. I mean, this is a type of card where you keep an eye out for things like that as the game goes on, you know, because you might find that kind of stuff. But I just think, you know, this is a very obvious case, and I don't think this is how anyone would practically use it. But being able to have Grogu out there, play the Guerrilla Attack Pod in a situation where it would ready, and then deal 2 damage to it to pump up the grit even more before you swing with it. So there's just a lot of fun stuff I think you can do with it. All right, moving on. Luke.
All right, we have Luke Skywalker, A Hero's Beginning. This is a 4-cost ground unit, just heroism. You get a 3/5 stat line, has force and fringe traits. When you play another unique unit, you may use the force. If you do, give an experience token and a shield token to this unit. So essentially, whenever you have the force, if you want to use your force when you play a unique unit, he gets stronger. And I really like the flavor of this, because when you kind of just think about Luke's journey, what happened? He kept having new, interesting, unique people enter his life, and then he was better for it, right? He meets old Ben, he meets Han, he meets Leia, and he's getting stronger all along the way. So I just think that when you think about the theming, this is like right on point.
Oh, totally. And like we said, most of the time, the vast majority of the cases, they do a great job of making the card abilities thematic with the lore. This is another good example of that. But he can be mind tricked, by the way.
To start with.
That's he needs to get he needs to have 2 people come into his life to be smart enough to not be mind tricked anymore.
I just adore that in most cases, the best way to not get mind tricked is to have a lightsaber in your hands.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to even try to mind trick that person. Can't blame him. You know what's hilarious? We're going to talk about a card that during certain circumstances cannot be mind tricked, and that is a curious flock of porgs. Because it's a 1/1 for 1, and it says, and you might think, well, of course you can mind trick that. Oh, but fair listener, continue listening. When played, pay up to 6 resources. For each resource paid this way, give an experience token to this unit. So you can play Curious Flock with enough XP buffs that it is too smart to be mind controlled. The groupthink, the collective intelligence of the porgs is just too much for the Jedi Masters.
And it's a creature.
And it's a creature. That's right.
Which means we can give it shields as well with Kanan.
Yeah. No, I love it. I really like this card for Kanan, actually, because you can play it at any point in the game, and at the very least, you're going to get equal, stats for cost.
Yeah. What I also like is if you're playing the green Kanan so that you can run Malakili, for example, this is another card where you could play it after you've played him turn 1, right?
Yeah.
You're only getting the 1/1 there, but it's still just a free body. And I don't hate that.
It's really useful. Like a free 1/1 is never a bad thing in this game. Free units in any card game sense is never a bad thing. So
yeah,
I do like
it's also worth noting, like if you start with Malakili and then you don't play him for free right away, you could on the next turn just dump out everything into it, and you'd still get a 4/4, right? So you'd get a 3-cost 4/4, which isn't terrible.
Yeah. Or
you could get a 3-cost 3/3 and spend your last resource for a shield if you feel confident it would survive, long enough to do that. But there's a lot of flexibility. I know it seems like a bit of a meme, but I think you're right. I think with Kanan, I would definitely want to be running some number of them.
Yeah, fair enough. I don't think you could use Malakili with this to overstat it for the cost. Is that what you're saying?
You can, because he's going to reduce the cost by 1, so he's going to set it to being essentially a base of a 0 cost 1/1.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, you can. Yeah.
And then when played, right? So on turn 2,
I need to stop talking.
You can spend your 3 resources to make it a 4/4. No, listen, it's okay. We're old, man.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. Well, let's talk about. I believe this is the almost
this episode
last.
Is just we're old.
Oh my gosh, this has been a rough one. It's been a long week. This card is awesome though.
I like it. I saw some folks that were less than enthused, and maybe because it's a legendary, but it is Constructed Lightsaber. This is a 3-cost neutral upgrade.
Yeah.
And you attach it to a force unit. If it's attached to a heroism unit, it gains Restore 2. If it's attached to a villainy unit, it gains Raid 2. If it is attached to a non-heroism, non-villainy unit, it gains Sentinel. And it also provides +2, +3 for the stat line.
I like it. I think it's cool. I think it's very versatile. especially in something like, if you go for a Force-centric Chancellor Palpatine deck, which I totally want to do now, then you have a couple different ways to use it. I think people are a little bit less enthused that it's 3 for a 2/3 base stat line, but I mean, I think all the abilities are good. Sentinel is probably the least appealing, but I think it's still strong. So, and I think it's cool. I think it's just neat to have a neutral lightsaber that has like a different like set of abilities for what you play it on. I think that's just a cool card to have in the game, whether or not it's strong.
I think it's a cool card to have in the game, as you said. I do think that there are some cases where I would still potentially consider running it in Premiere, as weird as that sounds.
Oh, I can see that.
When you think about like how hard it can be to like make General Grievous work, for example, this might give you some additional flexibility. But what really stands out to me, it's so funny because you thought Sentinel was the weakest, and I'm on the other end. I keep thinking about like, what about all of these Force units that we've seen that like they're okay in their own right, but sometimes having a unit with Sentinel is enough to like really throw off somebody's game plan. And so playing that from hand as a surprise is usually a big swing. So I actually think, as weird as it sounds, that might be the most beneficial application for it. I think about cards like, what is it, Protector, where you pay 1 for +1/+1, but it's a double vigilance, whereas this is neutral. And we've got, coming in this set alone, like we have the Anakin, but we also had the Marin, right? We've got a number of units that are not heroism or villainy. And when, they have these high health pools and you can just jam this on there and mid-turn maybe throw off what your opponent was wanting to do. I think that there's a lot of potential value there.
I think they're all good. Yeah.
The last thing that I want to say, this is a callback to something I said probably over a year ago on this podcast now, but I've been saying it for a while. All I've wanted for a bit is some sort of generic lightsaber as a card, because I think that when you think about alternate art treatments of things, convention exclusives of things, whatever, this one is just a picture of the hilt. But what I want is a series of ones where it's lit up and it's different colors, because I think that player expression and customization is a big deal. And so the idea of like, hey, I can make, my favorite character rock a purple lightsaber if that's what I want to do, or an orange lightsaber or whatever. I think that has a lot of like really cool potential personally. Like I would want to do something like that, even just for like Twin Suns or whatever, right? I want my like casual build a Jedi, if you will.
I agree completely. What I thought was funny about this one was that this is the only lightsaber that General Grievous can't equip. It's the most generic, but because it says attached to a Force unit, he can't equip it. So
it's
so I was thinking about that. I was like, oh, another one for his collection. Wait a minute. No, he can't add this one to his collection. A lot of people missed that. I saw people talking about Grievous and I'm like, wait 1 second. Can't quite do that this time. But it is neat. It is a neat card to have in the game. But yeah, poor Grievous. Can't add this one. Moving on. I wanted to include these. We're out of spoilers, but I wanted to include these it's one of the promo packs that they're releasing this year. I think this is going to be at the Galactic Celebration. I'd have to double check, but they're doing these really neat treatments of the droids, which I thought this
was on social media announced as the convention exclusive pack this year.
Oh, okay, sure. Well, I would hope that you are correct, but I would hope the Galactic Championship at least qualifies as a convention, because they are going to have just like Star Warsy stuff kind of happening, didn't they say? I think they did. Anyway,
man, I'm tired.
You can get these one way or another. They're cool treatments of the droids. I like kind of the schematic sort of look. I'm just going to go through it quickly, but we also do have new cards to talk about with this as well. Not least, not BB-8, but we do have BD-1 from the Jedi Survivor game. Jedi Outcast. Yeah, not Outcast. Jedi. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you're right. It's Jedi Survivor and then Fallen Order.
Fallen Order. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at this. When played, choose another friendly unit. While this unit is in play, the chosen unit gets +1/+0 and Saboteur. And this unit is hidden, so they can't get rid of it right away. So it's a nice little buff that is not attached to the unit, which makes it a safer buff, if that makes sense.
Yes. And what stands out to me about this, and I wanted to mention it because I think that it might throw some folks because we haven't seen like the base card yet. I just wanted to point out this is heroism and cunning, even though the background is all red. So with these like schematic droid cards, they did it based on like their paint job, right? Like that's why the R2D2 one is, you know, primarily blue, for example, because he's got blue in his color. But this is actually a cunning card. So even though it's red, just keep that in mind. And it's also a fringe droid unit as well. Some of that stuff, like I think that this looks really cool, but I'm also glad that this is just alternate art because the templating makes finding some of the information a bit difficult with this setup.
I agree, and I don't mind that so much because these are obviously cards that a new player isn't going to open in a pack and be confused by. These are cards that are going to be intentionally purchased by people experienced with the game. So I think it's neat that you have this a cunning deck and all of a sudden this bright red card comes out of it, you know? I think that's kind of cool. So I'm fine with it, but I do know some people have been complaining. I don't really care. I think it's fine. We got a new C-3PO as well, which is pretty exciting. This one is 1 cost command and heroism, despite being yellow. It's a 1/3 and says action, return this unit to its owner's hand, give a unit +2/+2 for this phase. So cool. Bounce them to your hand, give a buff, get another card in hand. I love it. I love this card a lot, actually.
Yeah, this is kind of the heroism answer to Salacious Crumb in my mind, right?
A little bit, yeah.
Crumb is, you know, also command, but villainy, also a 1/3, also something that, you know, you perform an action and return it to your hand. Crumb has a little bit more interactability with itself because you're also getting the bonus when played. But the nice thing is, this being another command unit, this gives heroism a way to run the Yularen loop, as I like to call it. So when I would play villainy command control decks, I almost always included Salacious Crumb and Colonel Yularen because if you have something that you can very cheaply keep bouncing to your hand and replaying, he's going to keep giving you free health triggers, right? Crumb exists only in villainy. This being in heroism is, I think, a win for your command-based, you know, heroism control lists.
Yeah, totally. It's pretty neat. And then we finally have the Chopper, which is yet another new card. Go ahead and tell us about this one.
Oh, man.
I know you love
My
Chopper.
war criminal buddy. I love you, Chopper. This is a 2-cost ground unit. It is aggression and heroism, the way Chopper intended. It has a 4/1 stat line. It is a rebel, droid, and specter. When this unit deals combat damage to a base, each player discards a card from their hand. What's really interesting is this is potentially controversial, but when I saw this, I thought, you know, they made this have 4 attack as a balancing measure because I actually think that this is even better if it had 3 attack. Because any of those things where you could ready a unit that has 3 power or less would be absolutely annoying and absurd with this.
Yeah, that's really true. That's funny. I agree. I think it's great. Like it's just a card that requires an answer. Nobody wants to be discarding cards every time it attacks, but the 4 attack is also going to make you use it too. It's also a thing that like if you're playing this card, you're going to want to attack with it because 4 damage is very relevant. But yeah, red blue mill is real. It is cool. There's a lot of ways you can bring it back too. So I'm excited about that. But like we talked about, some neat cards coming in. I need to hide the spoiler thing. There we go. But yeah, a lot of cool stuff coming in Legends of the Force. I'm sure we're going to be talking about much more of it as time goes on. But for now, let's move on to our mailbag. We do have a mailbag question that I wanted to discuss before we called it a night with this one. Let's see. And so let me find it. The mailbag right here. This is from Red Husky Everett, who says, it's a comment about the Revan leader. If Revan was green-black or any other color with villainy, would he have been overpowered? To me, I'm not sure he would even have been a strong option then. So I think to start with, I think there's an assumption that Revan will be a weak leader as only villainy. And I didn't think that when he was revealed, and now that you see the support that he's getting with Tyrannus and Malik, I really don't think he's going to be a weak leader. So I will push back on that a little bit and say I don't think Revan is going to be a super weak leader. So I will say that, yeah, giving him an aspect, giving him one more aspect, probably could have very well made him too strong, you know, because being able to get an XP for taking out a unit for free, remember there's no cost with his leader ability, is really, really strong. And I think something that can be built around very successfully, especially where we have all these force units coming out with high health. So I think Revan's strong. I do wonder if he had an aspect, if he would have been too strong. Hard to say for sure, but I think that's a possibility. What do you think?
I firmly believe that he would have been.
Yeah.
We're looking at a leader that deploys on 5, which is kind of already the gold standard for most leaders. Has a reasonable stat line. 3/6 is fine. It's outside of takedown range. Has restore, which is potentially relevant. But the big thing is the ability, if it's easily paired with more than one aspect, I think has the potential to really get out of control. And so allow me to, first of all, I'm just going to talk about each aspect individually and their potential bonuses, and then I'll expand on it. So first, I think the question mentioned, like, what if he was green? Well, Command has a lot of like just natively good ambush units to begin with. And then it's also got timely intervention. And if all of them are now also like not just ambushing, but then getting bigger as a direct result, I could see situations where you snowball beyond what your opponent can deal with. Yeah. Right. It would be against aggro, for example. Aggro might get a couple of like hits in, but then after that, they're going to be relying on any sort of direct damage or direct burst stuff that they can, because you're going to make value trades and have your stuff live. And then they're going to be playing into a board where you have presence every time. That's a problem. And that's just with the green. If you look at the blue side of things, blue has a ton of naturally sticky units. It's either units with high health, units with shielding, etc. So again, if you're playing some sort of control deck where you have a lot of removal, and villainy blue, especially when you've got Power of the Dark Side and those things available to you, when you have sticky units where they're going to potentially keep growing, and then this, like, I already think about nightmare scenarios where, like, yeah, he's got the Malik support, but you know who else is also good on 5 with Revan? Gideon Hask is going to be pretty dang good with a Darth Revan deck. So putting him in blue, I think, again, there's a lot of potential benefit there. You look at Cunning, like Command, has a ton of ambush stuff, has a ton of like minus to the power of opposing units so that you can make those free value trades. But the ambush stuff, especially when you remember cards like Enfys Nest from set 2, where it's also making your ambush stuff even more effective. All of that, I think, combines really well with Revan. And then we already know that Cunning Villainy has been a powerhouse for a while, so not much more I need to elaborate there. So, like, as I'm going through these, like, and then aggression. Aggression is already aggression. If you're making your units, when they are forced to value trade, if they potentially get bigger, like, it's just icing on the cake. But honestly, I think aggression might be the weakest one with him. However, all of those are just like individually good. But now I want you to imagine a scenario where, like, let's say Revan is green, and now you can also then run some sort of blue base with him, so you can, ambush out your shielded units, do all of those shenanigans. Or if he's blue and now you're playing him with ECL, but you have access to 2 colors, right? Like, I do firmly believe we will probably see him played either with green or blue the most. But at least by making him just villainy, you have to make the choice. Do I want the shields and the more control, or do I want the ambush and the ECL for like the crazy shenanigans? Because like ECL with Malik is kind of insane as well, because again, you can stack the effects, right? So you could deploy Revan, then you could ambush in Malik, overwhelm something, and he gets bigger, and ready him, and then a swing again and overwhelm something, and he gets like, just with a single aspect alone, you're already looking at a pretty insane curve. I don't want to imagine a world where Revan has easy access to the multiple colors.
Imagine
I firmly believe he would be too strong.
I agree. I imagine an Imperial package already with him where you can throw it on like General Veers and give everything else +1 already so that you can trade in even easier and double up on the +1/+1s for a turn. Like I think Revan's going to be pretty good. You're going to have to be
over aggression, but like even force throw, right?
HK-47 is an aggression. I mean, he's got support right in there. Yeah. So he's going to be, I think he's going to be strong. I think he's going to be, I think there's this thing that happens where people see an ability and they only think like, well, is this good in a Sabine way? And while the best Sabine players are certainly very skillful, Sabine is a leader that is very easy to pick up and quickly play well. Whereas if you contrast with like Poe, for instance, Poe is basically as good as Sabine. He's just harder to play at that level. It requires more skill and more pre-planning to play him that well. I think Revan's going to be another aggro leader or just leader in general in that category where he's going to very much reflect the skill of the player when he's played. He's not just a sit down and play it, plug and play kind of thing, So I think a lot of people see abilities like that and they're like, oh, it's not as good. And it can be as good if you put in the reps, right? Which might not be what you want to do if you want to just spike tournaments, right? If your goal is to just win, then you want to take the easiest path to victory. You want to play Sabine. If you want to win, but you want to really dive into the intricacies of the game, then I think Revan's going to be a good choice for that. I think he's going to be strong enough. But time will tell. We're just two really tired dudes talking about a card game. So you go out there and prove us right or wrong.
And StarCraft.
That's right. Great RTS. I miss those days. Anyway, that brings us to the end of the episode. Any final thoughts? Should we close it out there?
I think that's a good spot.
We've
already went long. We're already delirious.
Yeah.
I don't think that they need more thoughts from us. I think
that was almost a 2-hour episode. Man, people better appreciate it.
Yeah.
So
we
good.
thought it was going to be a short one.
Yeah, I that's right. Well, hope you enjoyed it. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We'll catch you next time. I'm going to be probably taking a break for a little bit, but I will be back in June. So see everyone later. Have a wonderful night or day or whatever time of day it is. And Charmer.
May the Force be with you.